Two of the most powerful men in Labour are scared right now, and neither one of them will admit it. Not the polite kind of worried you see on the news, the real kind, the kind that only shows up when someone's shown you numbers you didn't want to see. Andy Burnham just became Prime Minister. Sadiq Khan has run London for 10 years. Both of them built their whole careers on one promise, that they, more than anyone else in Labour, could hold on to voters everyone else was losing. That promise is being tested right now, in their own back gardens, and it's coming close to breaking. Subscribe now, because what I'm about to show you is the story neither man once told, using their own numbers, from their own turf. So let's start with what actually connects these two men, because once you see it, everything else makes sense. Burnham and Khan built their careers on the same proposition, that a Labour politician could hold the voters the National Party was losing everywhere else by being more direct, more rooted, more honest about the places and the people they represented than the leadership in Westminster ever managed to be. Burnham did it with the North. Khan did it with London. Both men claimed to understand voters the National Party could not reach. Both positioned themselves as the bridge between what Labour had become and what the people Labour used to represent actually needed. It was a compelling proposition. It was compelling enough to win them power, to sustain approval ratings that made national careers look plausible, and in Burnham's case, compelling enough to eventually deliver the single largest promotion in British politics. He no longer merely claims to hold the North, he governs the country. But the proposition rested on one assumption, that the voters both men claimed to represent would stay available to be represented by a Labour politician, however authentic, however rooted, however carefully the language was chosen. That assumption has not been weakened. It has been tested directly, in both men's own territory, within the last several months. And in both cases, it came far closer to breaking than either man is willing to admit in public. Go to Burnham first, because what just happened in Greater Manchester should frighten every person in Labour who still believes his model cannot be beaten on his own ground. When Burnham left the mayoralty to take Downing Street, his own region had to choose who would replace him. Labour won that race. Bev Craig took it comfortably in the final count. That is the number the party wants you to remember. Here is the number they do not want you dwelling on. To reach that final count at all, Labour first had to survive a first round in which Reform UK and Restore Britain, standing as separate parties, competing against each other as much as against Labour, still pulled in close to a third of the vote between them. Reform alone took a fifth. In the region, Andy Burnham spent 9 years telling this country belonged to him, in the specific contest held to decide who would carry that legacy forward. Understand what that means. This is not a marginal seat where Labour's roots were always shallow. This is the mayoralty of the self-declared King of the North, contested the very moment he vacated it, and a party that has existed for barely 18 months came within reach of the final round. Burnham did not lose Manchester, but the Manchester he has spent 9 years describing, loyal, solid, unshakably his, did not show up either. What showed up instead was an electorate in which close to a third of first-round voters looked at Labour's chosen successor and chose someone else. And Burnham no longer gets to manage that risk from the comfortable distance of a regional office. He manages it now from the one address in the country where every regional weakness becomes a national headline. Number 10. Now go to Khan, because his fear is different in its specifics, but identical in its structure. Khan built his coalition with real skill. The city's Muslim communities, its young professional class, its ethnic minority voters, its progressive majority. He held that coalition through 3 elections. He used it to become the most nationally recognisable Labour politician outside the leadership itself. That coalition is now under pressure from a direction Khan did not adequately prepare for. The latest polling for the London Assembly puts Reform UK level with the Conservatives, both parties on 18%, tied for second place behind Labour. Level in London. A city Reform was not supposed to be able to touch. That single number should be read as a genuine milestone, because of what it makes possible. Reform is now competitive for actual constituency seats in the outer boroughs, Bexley, Bromley, Havering, Redbridge, and if it wins even one, it will be the first time in the entire history of devolved London government that any party outside Labour, the Conservatives or the Liberal Democrats, has taken a seat there, not close to it, the first time it has actually happened. And this year's local elections confirmed the direction of travel in the starkest way yet. Labour went in controlling 21 of London's 32 boroughs. It came out having lost ground to the Greens in parts of inner London, yes, but to reform specifically in the outer boroughs that were always Labour's and are now, for the first time, genuinely contested. Havering projected to fall entirely. Barking and Dagenham, Bexley, Barnet all facing serious challenges that would have been unthinkable under any previous London mayor. Khan did not build a fragile coalition. He built a real one. But Farage and Lowe are not attacking it in the abstract. They are going directly at its weakest seams, the outer boroughs, the voters who have always felt furthest from the mayor's attention, and offering them something specific instead. Here is why this is not merely bad news for Labour in general. It is uniquely dangerous for these two men in particular. Burnham and Khan did not run as ordinary Labour politicians managing ordinary Labour decline. They ran as the exceptions. They staked their entire national relevance on the claim that they, specifically, could hold what the rest of the party was losing. That claim was the foundation. It was the brand. When Farage and Lowe go into Greater Manchester and Outer London and take exactly the voters both men used as their proof, it is not a generic setback. It is a direct falsification of the specific argument that built both careers. Burnham said he could hold the North. In the contest to choose his own successor in his own region, nearly a third of voters did not choose Labour at all. Khan says he governs for the whole of London. The parts of London moving fastest toward reform are consistently the parts that have always felt least like a priority to him. This is the kind of damage that does not fade with the next news cycle. It is structural. When the specific claim that justified a political career is tested by the very voters it was built on and found wanting, restating the claim more confidently does not repair it. The voters have already told the pollsters why they left. So what have Burnham and Khan actually done in response? Mostly, they have gestured. Burnham has leaned hard into cost of living relief since taking office. Business rates cut for hospitality, bus fares capped, VAT trimmed from energy bills. These moves are genuinely popular. His approval numbers, weeks into the job, are the best recorded for any incoming Prime Minister in years. Labour's national polling has pulled level with reform for the first time since the last government began to collapse. None of that answers the question raised by his own region's mayoral contest. Popularity with the country as a whole does not explain why nearly a third of voters in the place Burnham insists he understands better than Westminster ever could, chose the two parties furthest from Labour the instant his own name left the ballot. Khan, for his part, has said publicly that he will work constructively with whichever parties end up controlling London's boroughs, reform included, should the results go that way. Pragmatic, careful, the language of a mayor managing a divided city. Also, notably, not an explanation of why the city is dividing against him in the first place. Neither man has done the one thing that would actually reverse this. Neither has offered a direct account of why the voters who trusted them are choosing Farage and Lowe instead, or what concretely changes as a result. Gesturing toward the frustration is not the same as answering it. Relief on bills buys time. It does not buy back a claim that has already been tested by the voters and come up short. Here is what should frighten both of them more than any single poll. Farage and Lowe are not competing with vague reassurance. They are going straight at the exact voters Burnham and Khan built their careers claiming to represent on immigration, on the visible cost of housing people who arrive illegally, on the sense that legitimate concerns have been managed and minimized rather than honestly answered, while Burnham and Khan have spent years, by instinct and by training, calibrating carefully around those same subjects instead of confronting them directly. That contrast is the entire story. Voters who feel they have been spoken to carefully for a decade are responding to men who are willing to speak to them plainly, whatever you make of what is actually being said. That dynamic does not reverse through better messaging. It reverses, if it reverses at all, through a genuinely different answer. Neither man has given one. And the stakes for Burnham have just multiplied in a way that should keep him awake at night. When this pattern showed up while he was mayor, it was a regional wound with regional consequences. Now he is Prime Minister. The same forces playing out nationally instead of locally are no longer a threat to a mayoralty. They are a threat to a government. His government. Arriving with none of the patience a new leader would normally be granted because the country has just watched 7 prime ministers fail inside a single decade and has almost nothing left to extend. I want to be precise, because precision is what separates a warning from noise. I am not telling you Burnham and Khan are finished. Burnham's numbers right now are genuinely strong. Khan remains the clear favourite for a 4th term if he chooses to stand. Neither man loses power tomorrow. What I am telling you is that the evidence sitting in their own strongholds, a mayoral runoff in Manchester that came closer than it should have, a London Assembly poll with reform level with the Conservatives, outer boroughs turning away from Labour for the first time in a generation, is the first hard proof that the exception both men built their careers on is no longer holding the way it used to. Farage and Lowe did not invent this shift. They found it, they went straight at it, and they are converting it borough by borough, seat by seat, into organisation that does not disappear the moment a good news cycle about bus fares rolls through. What Britain is actually watching is two of Labour's safest names finding out, in public, that the voters they assumed were locked in were only ever on loan. That's a harder kind of trouble than losing an election outright. It doesn't arrive as one bad night. It arrives gradually while the announcements keep coming and the ribbon cuttings keep happening and the room slowly empties without anyone officially being told to leave. If you want the next set of numbers the moment they land, from Manchester, from London, from wherever this goes next, subscribe and pass this on to anyone who still assumes those two cities are safe Labour territory by default. Right now, that's the one assumption actually being put to the test.